There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
You're watching Sky News. Got the press preview for you in a moment. Taking a look at the front pages as they come into us at Sky. But first, let's just remind you of our top story tonight. Tributes have been coming in for the former President of the United States, Jimmy Carter. He has died at the age of 100. He was the oldest living former US president, and he died peacefully at his home in Plains in Georgia, the town where he was born. He died earlier this afternoon. This is live picture of the White House, the stars and stripes there flying at half-mast. The President of the United States, President Biden, said in the last few minutes today, America and the world lost an extraordinary leader, statesman and humanitarian. Over 6 decades, we had the honour of calling Jimmy Carter a dear friend. But what is extraordinary about him is that millions of people throughout America and the world who never met him thought of him as a dear friend as well, keeping across the reaction, of course, throughout the evening here on Sky News. Right now, though, time for the press preview. It's our first look at what is on Monday's front pages. Tonight, we'll see what's making the headlines with the independent columnist, James Rampton, and the former Conservative MP, who's now Chief Executive of the charity Business in the Community, Mary Macleod. We're just trying to work out in the break what day it is. It's always hard to remember, isn't it, this time of year? Today's Sunday, tomorrow's definitely Monday. So let's have a look at some of Monday's headlines. The front page of the Eye warns that nearly 2/3 of voters don't believe the Prime Minister can relieve household spending pressures next year. The rising toll of young adults too ill to work. That's on the front of the Times. Meanwhile, the front of the Guardian says safety checks have been ordered on thousands of schools amid structural concerns. While the Daily Express leads with a warning from experts about weight loss drugs being bought online. The FT, meanwhile, reports that defaults on US credit card loans are at their highest since the wake of the 2008 financial crisis. And the Daily Star says that parts of Britain could be colder than Moscow over New Year thanks to a polar plunge. And don't forget, you just need to scan the QR code you can see on screen during the programme. Use your mobile phone, scan the code. You can have a look at the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch us discussing them. And to do that, James Rampton and Mary Macleod. So the sad news this evening that President Jimmy Carter has died at the age of 100. And it's been fascinating, hasn't it, just reminding ourselves of the incredible life that he led, only 4 years of that life actually in the White House.
Yes, and I think what's interesting is, he was a politician, yes, from 1977 to 81. And then due to what was going on in that time, the recession, high unemployment, he lost for those reasons and others to, of course, Ronald Reagan. But yes, 100 years, and I think he'll perhaps be more known for what he did after his presidency. A real humanitarian and someone, of course, a real strong Christian, but compassionate, all about looking to see what he could alleviate human suffering. He set up in essence, the Carter Centre in 1982, immediately after he was president. And that was all about how you could help with human rights, how you could alleviate suffering, and promoting freedom and democracy. He did a lot of work in that regard, and therefore he will be remembered for those things. And of course, got a Nobel Peace Prize as well for some of that work that he did. So he's for the real family man, a wonderful long marriage. His wife dying last year, passing away, 4 children and many grandchildren. But just was, I think, really the legacy of what he did post his pregnancy. His presidency will live will live on, and people will remember him for those things he did to really make a difference around the world on whether that was peace or humanitarian issues.
Yeah, even at the end of his life, still campaigning, still working hard.
Yeah, even in his 90s, he was helping to build houses for poor people. Just on a sidebar, as a journalist, I take my hat off to the Times. This news only dropped about 45 minutes ago, and they've got it on the front page. You can imagine the panic on the back bench when this happened. But to get back to Carter, an astonishing life. Yes, you said he did superb work after he was president, but I think we mustn't underestimate what he did as president. He brought about the 1978 Camp David Accords, which ended 30 years of war between Israel and Egypt, something that people said was absolutely impossible. One of Franklin Roosevelt's envoys during the war said it was the most extraordinary thing any US president had ever achieved because it seemed so impossible. He also was staunchly anti-apartheid long before other world leaders were taking that stance, and he took a very, very hard stand against the USSR. So those achievements, the ending of those appalling regimes, were credited to Reagan, but Carter made the first steps, and probably without his work, Reagan wouldn't have reaped the benefits. So an astonishing life. And he was born into absolute poverty. He was the epitome of the American dream. He grew up in a farm with no running water, no electricity, no mechanised equipment. They used hand ploughs and horses, and he went on to be, yes, a president who was controversial and had some failures. His attempt to rescue the US hostages in Iran did him enormous damage, but he will be remembered as not perhaps a great president, but a great human being.
Yeah, someone with compassion and moral clarity, as President Biden said. Let's move on to the front of The Guardian. Mary, this awful plane crash and the footage is just so distressing, isn't it? And so many questions as to what on earth went wrong with an airline that had a good safety record and an aircraft that has a very good safety record.
Absolutely, and, you know, thankfully not many plane crashes like this happen. But, of course, immediately our thoughts go out to the families involved. You know, 179 have lost their lives in this plane crash in South Korea. And it really is, you know, a Boeing 737-800 attempted an emergency landing. We're warned about the birds that could have been part of it. But it will, in essence, I mean, you've been talking through the course of the evening what actually happened. And as the plane came into land, there was no undercarriage there. It was in essence, it was skidding completely, in essence, out of control once it hit the ground. And of course, spun off to the right and burst into flames and hit a wall as part of it. So it literally is. There was no hope. I'm surprised even two managed to get out of that. But yes, there's in essence, there'll be a big investigation now into why. You know, was it power failure, hydraulic failure? Was it the bird strike? They can be very unpredictable. So what is it there? How much engine damage was done? Because you can fly in one engine. So was it both engines? And what was in the undercarriage? And of course, you can, with the undercarriage, do it manually as part of that. But they have, of course, they've found and recovered the black boxes. There's two. There's the flight data recorder and also the cockpit voice recorder. So they've recovered those. But this big investigation will take part.
This is
live
pictures now, actually, of the aftermath of that crash. And, I mean, the whole plane destroyed. Just the tail end there left. And, of course, it was at the back of the plane where those two cabin crew members managed to get out of it alive, which, you know, when you look at that, you wonder how anyone at all survived. So that investigation continues. Plenty more after the break. Coming up, among the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of the Star, the headline, colder than Moscow at New Year as polar plunge brings snow and chaos. Oh dear. We'll be right back.
I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent.
Enormous explosion that's just come down. I think it was a monster just landed in between us.
Hundreds and hundreds of people hoping to get north, ultimately to get to the United States.
It's a border where they're not welcome, yet they keep coming.
We saw snatch squads going in, grabbing people, taking them out and putting them into trucks and taking them away.
They make about 50 kilos of fentanyl a week. It's incredibly dangerous and toxic stuff.
There's been an upsurge in deaths. The fighting between the gangs is getting more and more vicious.
Is this now all your territory?
Yeah.
The battlefield is outside the barricades, which is over there. This is much more like a normal town. It's really sending a clear message that Venezuela is eager for change. We're being crushed.
Free from wherever you get your news. We are in the middle of a forest, in a jungle really, and they're attempting to keep these men alive. This is real, hardcore emergency medicine. The information on this could bring down the entire network, not just in Iraq and Syria, but across the world. Sky News, the full story first.
Hundreds of thousands of people have been using the beast for years to traverse Mexico, but it is really dangerous. Many people have died riding it.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Weeknights on Sky News.
This is your chance. Tell people.
Welcome to the Politics Hub.
Our police force has apologised.
If you want to find out about Grimsby, you come to the docks.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Are you not concerned that that could lead to all-out war?
Hello there, good evening. There are fears of an upsurge in violence. What's at stake here? You are watching the press preview, a first look at the front pages as they arrive.
Hello again, welcome back to the press preview. James and Mary still with me. James, let's talk about smoking. Daily Express, 17 to 22 minutes of life lost with each cigarette. Of course, it's something a lot of people are thinking about this time of year, giving up potentially.
Yeah. It's a very relevant story. New year, new you, diets, giving up boozing, giving up smoking, all these things will be top of people's priority after the self-indulgence of the Christmas period. And this is a really good story. I mean, it's actually pretty shocking. University College in London has done this excellent piece of research that suggests that men lose 17 minutes of life with every cigarette they smoke, and women, for some reason, lose 22 minutes of life. I mean, gender imbalance again. I mean, it's maybe because women have smaller lungs, I don't know. But they've worked out that if you quit smoking on the 1st of January and kept off the fags until the 8th of January, you could prevent the loss of a full day of life.
It's incredible statistic,
It's amazing.
Isn't it?
If you think about that, it's a very good way of putting it into stark terms that make you realise, goodness me, this does such a heck of a lot of damage. Imagine how much the NHS would save as well. I mean, I don't want to sound too sanctimonious, but this is the sort of research that would make young people think it's not worth it. If I stop for 8 days, I'm going to get a whole extra day of life.
And it's good to have a new bit of research because people know that it's deadly. That's advertised all over it. So this is something different, just to give a different aspect on it that people might just sit up and listen, and as well as it being very expensive.
Well, that's the other point, isn't it? You can actually save a huge amount of money by not smoking. It's so expensive. Have you ever been a smoker? Is it something you've had to give up? Or
No, I've never been addicted to it.
No,
addicted to
you
sweet
did
things,
give up.
Well, I was a sort of on and off smoker when I was a student, and it was but there's a lot of smoking in my family, which kind of put me off seeing the effects that it had on various members of my family. And it did make me think, goodness me, it's an expensive and very quick way to shorten your life. I mean, that sounds a bit harsh, but, you know, these sorts of pieces of research are vital in terms of making people realise the damage that you do to yourself, let alone to your wallet. And so I think it's great that the Express has run this on Page 2. It's making people very, very aware of the harm that they're doing to themselves with not just with a packet, but with a single cigarette.
Yeah, the research is saying quitting at any age substantially improves health, and the benefits start almost immediately. Worth thinking about, isn't it, as we approach New Year's resolutions? And let's finish with the front of the Daily Star, Mary. It was pretty mild over Christmas. It was miserable, wasn't it? It was foggy and it was misty and we didn't see the sun. But it was mild, but the polar plunge is on the way.
Absolutely, and this is sort of a multi-hazardous storm about to happen, snow, wind and rain, so be warned, and that's over the next few days into New Year. So yeah, it's, I think, though, everyone needs to just be wary of it, especially older people, and looking out for people in your community that need a bit of support. You know, will old people be able to keep warm throughout all of this? So there's certainly lots of worries that come with these, lots of traffic disruption as well. But I do think if we can all keep an eye out for our neighbours and the elderly who just may not be able to turn the heating on.
Do you know, that's a really, really good bit of advice, isn't it? What do you think of the headline, James?
I think it's quite poor. I think the work experience working amongst the sub-editors at the Daily Star, although we tried to think of a better... Vlad the Impola. No, it doesn't really work, does it?
No,
that was off the top of my head. I also have no idea why Vlad is eating fish and chips.
No, he's done. No, I don't get that.
But I do like the idea of him as a snowman.
Yes, cold as Moscow. Thank you both very much. We shall speak again in half an hour. Coming up next on Sky News at 11, more on the life and legacy of former US President Jimmy Carter. He has died at the age of 100.